the Dallas Mavericks, people were fascinated with this team in the postseason, and rightfully so. This team really blossomed in a way that I don't even know if like Mavs fans anticipated going into that postseason. And one of the things that they did the first round out was they beat the Jazz, but not just beat the Jazz. It really felt like they exposed and laid bare all of the problems that the Jazz had, to the point where the Jazz, it was very clear and evident to them that it was over.
Yeah, they broke that team. And that's the reason why, even without Luka and everything else, you just kept feeling like that series was, Dallas was going to have a handle on that series, because it was such a dysfunctional team, and the Mavericks were exposing everything about how broken their culture was and everything else. And I think everybody got the sense at the end of that series that this is it for Utah. Like, they're going to, as much as Utah postured about, well, we're keeping Donovan Mitchell, we're doing this, like, you knew it was over. And I think the Mavericks are the ones who put in, like, it was the final nail in the coffin on that group on that team. And we were talking about this yesterday, like the idea of examples of like, it's over. And like when you come to that realization, whether it be sports or maybe something else in your personal life. And I was thinking back on this one specific thing when I'd interviewed Darren Woodson a number of years back. Well, and he told me, I know.
My bad. I wasn't ready. I'll try and be better about that.
Kind of a big deal here. In James Carville. And so I look at, when I was talking to Darren, he was talking about after they won Super Bowl 30, which you think is like the height of that sport, and that like all that you've worked towards, you've accomplished it. I understand it was 3 and 4 years, and maybe it's not the same as the first one, but it's still this, wow, everything we put in all this work for, we won. And Darren Woodson told me that year, which was so tough on them, and it was 2 years into Barry Switzer after all the drama with Jimmy Johnson leaving. And he said, when we got into the locker room after winning that Super Bowl, he's like, it was not a lot of joy. He's like, there were beers sitting at our locker. Nobody really wanted to open them. And he said, we all sat down, and it wasn't joy. The emotion across the locker room was, damn, I'm glad this is over with. And he said that it was in that moment that they all kind of realized, man, there's going to be some changes this offseason. And he said he felt like everybody kind of had the sense of like, this is probably it, which is an interesting feeling to have in the moment of the peak of success at the highest level. Is you get that success and go, this is over.
Yeah, I was very interested when you relayed that anecdote to me, because a lot of times, especially in sports, we like to, and maybe this is because when I say we, there's a lot of people outside of the actual sports that are looking at it and playing armchair GM or whatever. And so you end up looking at stat sheets, you end up looking at spreadsheets, you end up looking at salaries. And those are the things where you go, oh, well, this has got to be over. But it's really interesting to remember, and I do this a lot, and I have done a lot recently, talking about how these are people that you're dealing with. There's active chemistry and human elements to these things. So thinking about it from the perspective of just like how sometimes an emotion within a team or a locker room or a clubhouse, the interpersonal dynamics can spell it being over in a way that maybe it's not just, oh, we don't have the salary cap space, or, maybe this guy is, over the hill and doesn't have it anymore. It can also be just, this isn't working from an emotional standpoint.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that was a big point of what Darren Woodson was talking about, and that's absolutely where the Jazz are at. And what Dallas did. We had always heard these rumblings of the issues between Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell ever since the COVID stuff had started. And they would always honestly deny it existed.
That,
it existed, and they would address it occasionally. And I think they said, well, we were rejuvenated by the reports, and we've come together, and they would always deny certain things. And that was the thing about the way Dallas played with them, was you took one team in the Mavericks that were, in a way, I think, all culture. Like that team was just such a strong culture, and when it came down to,
so much so that Mark Cuban was like, "I'll pay any fine that you get for exhibiting that culture on the bench."
With Luka not on the floor, they had to lean on their chemistry and their culture, because they were not more talented than the Jazz in those games. I don't think so. They were not a more talented team, Reggie. Come on,
that's tough, because also the Jazz played poorly, right? Because this is something
but just pure talent.
That's fair, especially when Luke is not on the court.
Yeah.
From the 4-4-3, they were already going to split that team up. Mitchell and Gobert hate each other before that series, and we are acknowledging that. I think that
if they went on a run, though, I don't know that they split it. If they had gotten to the West Finals like Dallas did, I don't know that they blow it up.
No, but that's the big thing.
That's why Dallas ended it.
They needed to make it clear that they could still compete. They had a lot of instances going to the second round, but not pushing forward into that conference finals range. and it just became evident that this wasn't working. In addition to that partnership between Mitchell and Gobert not being tenable anymore.
Yeah, and I think that's something that throughout sports, and I think everybody's had that, like where it's one of those. I think if you want to go to another example here in Texas, I think when the season ended in 2012, they lose that series to the A's, they collapse down the stretch. Hamilton's entering free agency. They'll play in the play-in wild card game, but I think everybody knew heading into that Orioles game, it was like, this is over. And not just this is over this time, it's you knew it was entering a season of change, where it's like this team, this collective, this one that we've watched from like 08, 09 up through 2012 that was a real World Series contender, it's over. And that's a tough thing to deal with and have to reckon with your teams and to address that. Because I don't feel like we ever got that with the Mavericks, right? Like the Mavericks was such an abrupt after winning that title. There wasn't a moment where it was just like you came to the realization one day that it is over and it's done, and they weren't that team wasn't going to contend again.